Like, what am I doing? I'm doing it for the show. Field of 68 till I die.
This is the Field of 68 After Dark Show, the only place that you need to be for college hoops every single night. And we are live. Welcome to the Monday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dostro. I'm not John Fanta. He had to cancel last minute. Bill Raftery invited him out to dinner, and I think that that's probably the right decision. Tonight, I'm joined by my partners in crime, Clemson's own Terrence Oglesby, my co-host on the Doster TO and Fanta podcast, and former Murray State and Iowa State head coach Steve Prohm. We have a loaded show on the slate. We're going to be diving headfirst into this Baylor-West Virginia game once it ends. We're going to be talking through whether or not there are any elite teams in the Big 12 this season, and we're going to be previewing Tuesday's action, specifically that matchup between Texas Tech and Texas. You're not going to find a better environment in college basketball this season than that game. But before we do all of that, Duke won again. They beat Notre Dame, who was in second place in the ACC coming into the night, 57-43. They allowed 14 points in the first half. Paolo Banchero finished with 21 points and 9 boards. Mark Williams was an absolute monster defensively. And once again, AJ Griffin looked like the best complimentary player in college basketball. So, T.O., you're an ACC guy at heart. I'm going to you first on this one, man. What do you make of this Duke team?
It told me a lot, but more than anything, it told me that they can win ugly. And that's something that you have to do whenever you're playing in the NCAA tournament, or you're playing in the ACC tournament, where you're playing the third game in 3 days or something of that nature. Like, if you can win ugly when the shots aren't always falling, that's significant. And they did a defensive masterpiece against a Notre Dame team that has a lot of weapons. And you mentioned some guys, AJ Griffin, you mentioned Paolo Banchero. Probably second most important player on that team is Mark Williams. And every time I see that young man play, I'm blown away. He did some things today offensively that we haven't seen a whole lot. He got the ball at the top of the key, drove right, defense converges, he dishes off for a wide open dunk. He just continues to impress. It took him a while. This is a guy that's a sophomore now. Last year, he kind of needed to get into the fold. Back half of last year, he started to play really well. This season, he is their most important piece on the defensive end of the floor. That guy has really developed into one of the premier defenders, not only in the ACC, but in the country, because he just covers so much ground with his length and athleticism.
I'm going to give the listeners a little peek behind the scenes. T.O. has been raving about Mark Williams for probably the last 2 hours on our group chat, getting ready for tonight's show. So I'm surprised that you cut it that short. I mean, you only went about 90 seconds on that little speech about Mark Williams. But Steve, he's not wrong. Mark Williams is definitely a difference maker for that Duke team.
Yeah, he is. Anytime you can put somebody around the rim on both ends of the floor that can compete, finish plays, but also change plays for the other team, and make plays around the rim, and you have that protective enforcer, it makes your defense that much better. And like what T.O. said, anytime you go on the road, because this was a big game for Notre Dame, when you look at their wins, they beat Kentucky, they beat North Carolina. Okay. And now you got opportunity to beat Duke. And obviously huge environment, big game, and Duke goes in there and wins double figures and holds them to the 40s. That's huge. And that says a lot, and it's winning different ways. But I think Duke, when you look at the impact AJ Griffin's had, as well as he's gotten healthy, and he's found his niche in that team. You heard Coach Krzyzewski was at the press conference the other day, just talking about the leadership of AJ and how he's impacted that team. I think it's been really, really big for that group.
How hard is it? Did you ever have to incorporate somebody that ended up being that significant of a piece this late in the year? It's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
No, it's not. We've had guys, in the past that, you play for a while, you get hurt, and then you come back. But he was out, and now he's really taking, kind of going full speed now, and now he's healthy. But it's not easy to do because you have chemistry going, because you're obviously very talented. But I think, the character of the team, the leadership of Coach Krzyzewski has been huge. And that's why they're top of the ACC right now, and got a chance, obviously, to win the ACC.
Well, it speaks of maturity. It speaks of the maturity of the kid, too. I mean, look at the beginning of the season. We went to the Champions Classic. He played a couple of minutes, but he didn't really make a profound impact on the game. And he's gotten progressively better and better and better and better. And now we're seeing peak AJ Griffin, and he turns him into a legitimate national title contender because he's a knockdown shooter from three. He's somebody who's physical enough to guard multiple positions. That's a big dude. And he can really shoot the basketball. And here's another thing, too. Goes 5 for 5 from three against Louisville. Turns around, only takes 2 threes at Notre Dame, and still manages to pick up points. That says a lot about his maturity. He didn't force something that wasn't there. I'm going to be honest with you, Steve. If I went 5 for 5 from three in one game,
10 up. You're 10 up
15. No, I'm going 15 to 17 threes. Next game, you already know what this is about before the game even starts.
Can I clarify something here? There is no chance that T.O. would ever go 5 for 5 in a game, because as soon as he hit 2 in a row, the first time he touches it on that next possession, that shot's going up. So there's never
there.
There's never going to be a 5-0 night for T.O. You can look through. I guarantee if you look through every single box score of every game that you played in your life, there's no 5 for 5 nights, man. You got to shoot till you miss. It's the heat check, baby.
That's it. Well, I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at his stats, and he had what did he end up with? 13 tonight. And his minutes have just progressively gone up. Kentucky, he plays 11 minutes. Campbell, 6 minutes. Ohio State only played 2 minutes. As you get further and further down the season, you talk about implementing him, Coach Prohm, and how that's been difficult. A lot of it depends on the kid too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this is, it says, if I'm an NBA draft guy and I'm looking at this, I'm like, hey man, this kid is willing to do what's best right now. Maybe not for the short term, but for the long term. That's a big piece.
Yeah,
that's a significant piece.
You touched on the maturity standpoint. I think just being in a basketball family, growing up in a basketball family, I think that's huge because he's seen it. He understands it. He's been coached, taught not only the game, but how to handle adversity, how to handle different situations. And then he's playing, for, arguably, the greatest basketball coach of all time. You could make an argument for a couple coaches, obviously, but, without question, that helps as well. The other's kind of sub story or, the undercard story of that is obviously it's Coach Krzyzewski's last year. And then Mike Bray, being his former assistant, winning 2 national championships together. Mike Bray really getting his start from Coach Krzyzewski. That had to be a surreal moment for both of those guys, especially Coach Bray, when you look down and say, this is the end. This is the last time I'm going to compete. And their embrace, and I didn't see the end when they embraced or before the game. That had to be a special moment, and obviously something probably that shared in between them. But, he hired Mike Bray as an assistant from DeMatha, and they win 2 national championships together. Now he goes on, and Mike's had a phenomenal career, both Mikes.
Is that how he got Johnny Dawkins back in the day, hiring Mike Bray?
Mike came in 87, and so Dawkins was there before. Dawkins was already there. He came in after.
So he recruited Johnny Dawkins to get Mike Bray on his staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually how that works.
Yeah, that's what it was. Let me ask you guys this about Duke, because I do think you made a point, T.O. They were able to win ugly. And one of my knocks on Duke the last couple of weeks has been, I want them to be elite defensively. I want to be able to look at them and say that is a throwback Duke team that is going to force turnovers. It's going to overplay. It's going to be a nightmare to play against. And they've been good, but they haven't been the level that I expected. But I thought tonight was the best defensive performance that they've had in maybe an ACC play altogether. Tia, what is it?
What are you missing? What are you missing there for them to be that elite team? What is it? The energy? What is it there? Because I'm curious, because to me they have all the pieces and they can guard everybody. The only small guy that they put out there is Jeremy Roach.
My issue is that they have all the pieces, but then why do we see nights like Florida State who lights them up? And Florida State, all due respect to them, they've not been great. Why do we see nights where Miami is able to get whatever they want against this Duke defense? You know what I mean? So the pieces are there. How come this is the first time that we've really seen it happen? Is it just because they went up against a Notre Dame team that doesn't have the same level of athlete that Duke does? I want to see more consistency there from them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And the teams that you just mentioned are teams that can break you down off the dribble by themselves. They don't require any ball movement. And I think that's a significant piece too. If you look at Miami, Isaiah Wong and Cam Auguste, they can make things happen and make tough shots. And then when you make a couple of tough shots, things start to open up. Charlie Moore for Miami, he can get downhill and do some of those same things. Now, what really makes this team intriguing is if Mark Williams can stay on the floor, and I know I'm beating a dead horse with this one. If he can stay on the floor, you saw the difference he made against Louisville. As soon as he checked out of the game against, I think they were up 24-11, 26-11. He checks out because he gets 2 fouls. That's when Louisville gets back in the game. Second half, he gets his third early. They're starting to make a run. He gets his third. He sits down. Louisville gets back into it. He's such a crucial piece. And I love Theo John. I love the energy he brings to this Duke team. But you need him for 10 minutes a game. Max.
He's not
more than
Mark
that.
Williams.
No, more than that. You love that physicality. You love that Steven Adams type approach where I'm going to come in and be the tough guy because I got some young guys I'm playing behind. I'm going to come up and mix it up a little bit. You love that. But he's not the rim protector that Mark Williams is. That dude is an absolute difference maker. And he's showing some offensive ability too. Like he's so big around the rim. He's been able to put it on the floor a little bit. He's a vertical spacer, somebody who can catch lobs and finish. Big Mark Williams guy. Big.
You know what he does better than I realized? He can move his feet a little bit. Like he
really can.
He's not. You're not going to switch him on to point guards and feel comfortable about it. But he can. You want him to hedge hard, he could do it. You want to play him and drop, he's going to keep somebody in front of him and kind of corral that dribbler, Steve. This is the Field of 68 After Dark. We are live on Sirius XM, channel 84, the ESPNU station. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Twitter, please leave a comment, ask us a question. We are monitoring the end of this Baylor-West Virginia game. Baylor is up 70-69 right now on the Mountaineers. Steve, I want to hit you on this. We know that Duke is probably the favorite to win the ACC, and they're probably a favorite to win the national title. I think right now our partners over at Bet Rivers have them as the second best team. They're 8.5 to 1 to win the national title right now. After them, who do you think the best team in the ACC is overall? Is it North Carolina?
If you just said talent, but I like Miami. I think their guard plays really good. T.O. just mentioned them. I think Jim Leonard-Neg obviously is a veteran coach as well. I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder this year. We talked about them a couple weeks ago, but Auguste and Moore and Wong, those guys have been really good. And they've won big games. And really they're, Florida State two last-second losses, right, from being 10-0 in the ACC, and one of them was the questionable call at this, they got beat at home. Florida State went in there and handled them. I know the game came down at the end, but at Florida State, that's a tough call. But I would say Miami. Obviously, Carolina is very talented when you just look at the names and the way they were recruited and different things like that. But to me, it's Miami. And obviously, I think Wake Forest Steve Forbes has done a great job with Wake Forest, but Miami's my number 2 team.
I'm right there too. I think Miami's number 2. North Carolina just doesn't guard consistently enough. Now, this game on Saturday coming up, they'll play Duke, and I've already went on a little bit of a rant on North Carolina because I get frustrated with their inconsistency. And let's be clear, the ACC is better.
Let it out, T.O. Let it out. I know you're fired up, man. Let it out.
I'm fired up. It irritates me that we're just giving North Carolina like they're their second best team. Like they're not.
Yeah, I think you got to go earn it though. At some point you got to go earn it.
At some point you got to go earn it.
I keep saying it, but at some point you got to win the game. You got to.
Well, here's the thing too, and it irritates me. And this is the thing that goes for a long time.
Up, baby, let's go.
All right, so this irritates me too. 2 years ago, whenever Cole Anthony was on that team, Carolina had 2 all-conference players, and they were dead last in the conference. That shouldn't happen, and it continues to happen.
Yeah,
so
Clemson
that irritates
and Carolina
me.
have always had a little.
Yeah, but I mean, it's part of it. But like, you need to earn second best. Like Miami's earned that right now. Like Wake Forest is right there too. I know they got thumped by Syracuse, but Wake Forest has earned that. Carolina, I'm not sure they've earned it.
What do they have to do to earn it then? Let me ask you guys this. So what does North Carolina have to do to earn it in your minds?
Not be the Scott Farkas of the ACC. You guys know who Scott Farkas is? Have you seen A Christmas Story? Have you seen A Christmas Story, Steve? Okay, so Scott Farkas
is the one that got the tongue stuck on the pole.
No, he's the one who would pop out of the woodworks and whoop kids' ass whenever, like, whenever like the kid wouldn't fight back. As soon as the kid fights back, Scott Farkas is gone for the rest of the movie. He is out of here. As soon as somebody punches North Carolina back in the mouth, they disappear. North Carolina right now is the Scott Farkas of the ACC. I don't want to hear any different.
That is actually a great comparison, T.O. And I don't think I could possibly love it more. And I'll tell you what, they would not survive in East Tennessee, would they?
No, not one of them.
I think
they'd be more talented.
Yeah. They've got a great slate of games that are going to kind of move the needle a little bit. Obviously, this weekend you got Carolina Duke, but you got Miami Notre Dame the middle of the week, I think Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Wake Forest, Florida State. So I think those are three big games in the ACC you have in front of you this week.
Games.
If Carolina wants to move the needle,
it's a huge weekend in the ACC title race.
If Carolina wants to move the needle, they need to beat Duke at home, and say, all right, this is our ceiling. This is what we can be. If they get beat, they go to 7-4. I know they've got a midweek game, so I don't know what they would win or lose there, but it's a big game for Carolina Saturday for sure.
Well, listen, Matthew Meyer has kind of taken this game over a little bit, and Baylor is now up 77-73 with 25 seconds left on West Virginia at home. It looks like they're going to close it out. Coming up next, I'm going to tell you why, despite this win, there are no elite teams in this year's Big 12.
Clear for 90.
All right. If you're in the chat right now on YouTube, please drop us some questions. I have a couple here. First and foremost, from Jordan T.O., I'm giving you this one. Give me a dark horse to win the national title. You got 15 seconds. Let's go.
Arizona. like I don't know. There's so many good teams. Who would really qualify as a dark horse? I think Baylor right now because they're injured. So Baylor could be a dark horse because they're struggling because their guards are injured. Like who's really a dark horse at this point?
I would say Wisconsin because they're a little bit off the beaten path a little bit, but I don't know if there is necessarily one. So let me ask you this then, Prohm, from Kendrick Washington. What does UConn have to do to be considered a national title contender? I think they have to go recruit another point guard.
Man, you probably should take that question because you follow UConn daily. I'm that guy. Yeah, they need more point guard play,
and they need Jordan Hawkins.
Seconds.
They need Jordan Hawkins to be like sophomore level, junior level Jordan Hawkins.
All right, last one. You guys, you each gotta make a decision on this one. How bad is Duke going
20
to
seconds.
It's from DFW 89. How bad is Duke going to beat the Tar Heels on Saturday?
They win double figures. Now, whether that's 10 or whether
10
that's
seconds.
15, they win double figures in Chapel Hill.
I don't know. Anything can happen.
5.
Both teams can be awful and it still work out.
What is your guys' opinion of Chris Beard?
Traitor. It wasn't about him leaving. It was about how he left. He's a traitor. Essentially tried to destroy the program. This is the biggest game of the year.
You could lose every other game.
What is your guys' opinion?
If you went 1-30,
Traitor. It wasn't about him leaving. It was about how he left. He's a traitor. Essentially tried to destroy the program. This is the biggest game of the year.
You could lose every other game. This is the game you have to win.
Sure.
If you went 1-30, but you beat Beard, you might be happy.
It was a great season.
What do you think you're going to do when you first see him come out on the floor?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be good.
It'll be good. What percentage of the people in there do you think are going to cheer for Chris Beard tomorrow?
Less than 1%.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's high. I think it will be 0.
Your reaction when Chris Beard's going to come out tomorrow on the court is going to be what?
I'm probably pretty upset.
Are you going to yell bad things at him?
There's a possibility. I gotta say there is.
Your mom and dad are not going to be happy.
My mom and dad are not going to be happy. I definitely don't feel bad for him.
Give me one word to describe Chris Beard.
Traitor.
Right?
Betrayal.
Traitor?
Ugly.
Ugly, dang.
That's brutal.
The hatred that we have for Texas here is
Why?
indescribable.
Oh, because Texas is this like high academic snooty school.
Those guys in Lubbock are fired up. This is the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dosser. I have Terrence Oglesby and Steve Prohm with me. You can find us Sirius XM channel 84. That is the ESPNU station. We're streaming on YouTube, so make sure you jump in the chat, ask us some questions. We'll be answering those during commercial breaks, and we will be We will be interacting with you guys there. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and make sure that you listen to the Goodman and Humble podcast. That's what we clipped. What you just heard from Jeff Goodman right now is in Lubbock, going through what they call Raiderville. He's throwing out candy bars with Mark Adams. He's waiting for the bus. He's asking all the students why they are so mad at Chris Beard. And it seems like, Steve, there's a little bit of hatred for their former coach down there in Lubbock. And I don't know. I'm not entirely sure why they're mad, because he's the reason why they actually care about that program. Is it just as simple as that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just, because he left. I think Tubby Smith, first of all, did a terrific job. I think, he took them to the tournament. I think they were in the 8-9 game a couple years back against Butler. And then obviously Chris came in and really raised the level, raised the, student body awareness, the fan base awareness. The environment in Lubbock totally changed, and the expectations in Lubbock totally changed. And it became, one of the toughest places to play in college basketball and one of the toughest places to play in the Big 12. Well, what's unfortunate as a coach, when you leave a school, especially after you've had great success, you do want to be, I don't know if the word's revered, but you do want to be welcome back. And I know there's a lot of hard feelings, but he did a lot of good for that program as well. I mean, you talk about Elite Eight, you talk about Final Four, Mark Adams came with him from Little Rock. And Mark's going to do a phenomenal job there in Lubbock. He's an elite coach. He's won his whole life. And so I think both places have the situations they want. Texas wanted Chris Beard. Chris wanted to be the head coach of Texas. And Mark Adams is a West Texas guy, loves Texas Tech. And he's going to be there, for a long time. And tomorrow night's really, to me, about substance over hype. There's a lot of hype to this game. Both coaches, I think, the way they run their program, there's a lot of substance there because they're defensive minded, their toughness, they're fundamentally sound. The substance is going to win out. Like we talked off air, you just hope it doesn't get crazy to where something, takes away from the game. Let those guys compete. They're going to give Coach Beer holy heck, but do it, to where we can still have a great college basketball environment, because that's what college basketball is about, is the environment.
Yeah, I just hope that it stays something that we can celebrate, right? If it's crazy and it's loud and they're screaming at Chris Beard, even if they're cussing at him, I don't really care. Hold up your middle finger. Make signs with words that would get your mouth washed out with soap if you were back in the house. I don't care about any of that. Don't throw stuff on the court. Don't go after the players. If you win and storm the floor, stay away from the team. Go celebrate with your team. You don't have to go at the other team. You don't have to go to Chris Beard. Flip him off. I don't think he really cares. Well, he probably does care a little bit about it, T.O., but I just hope that you don't go across that line where it becomes, okay, this is a problem.
He's the same guy you revered in March, and then at the end of March, now everything's changed. And so, but that's fans, fanatics, they love their school. And obviously
and
there's
look,
a rival.
I understand.
I think it's more than just Chris Beard left. It's where he left for.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I know there's a Texas Tech. I was getting to that, the rivalry piece. That's what bothers. If it goes to Arizona, they're probably
probably don't think much about it. The last guy that spoke in that segment's the guy who stuck out to me. He goes, y'all think you just all this money in Austin, Texas, and all that stuff, and people have called Texas Tech the little brother. I think they're like the four-wheeling cousin that shows up with like a Jeep and really big wheels, like or a truck with really big wheels on it. That's Texas Tech. I don't want to belittle them by calling them little brother. This is a rugged fan base. This is a lot of this is a passionate fan base. They're just have a little bit more edge than Texas fans. Like I've said this before, so it's not like I'm just coming out of nowhere and saying this. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of Texas fans, a lot of Texas boosters feel like you could just throw $100 million at something and just fix it. And that's not how this stuff works. At Texas Tech, you're not going to get as much money. You're still going to get a lot of money. Like you're still going to get a lot of money, obviously.
That practice facility is nice now.
Yeah, exactly right. Like you're still going to get a lot of money, but you're not going to get Texas money. I think that's fair to say.
No question. Yeah. No.
But I do want to talk a little bit about what Beard was able to do at Texas Tech, because I think that he deserves credit for building that program into what it was. Now, look, Steve, you coached against Tubby when he was at Texas Tech. they were winning games when Tubby Smith was there. That's part of the reason why he was able to get the Memphis job when he left. But it wasn't the same thing as it was when Chris really got it rolling. Like it's just the environment was different going into that building.
Yeah, the environment was totally different. I mean, Tubby had good teams. I played Tubby our first year at Iowa State, and I'm trying to my first year, and then our second year was Beard had gotten there, but the environment just wasn't crazy. Now, when you go to Texas Tech now, the fans are right on top of you. The student section's there early. They're yelling, screaming, they're into it, and they expect to win, and it's really, really loud. It's top 3 right now. I know we were talking about this off air, and I may be hitting this a little bit early. It's top 3 environment in the Big 12. It's top 3. I'd put it at 3.
Rank them right now. Put you on the spot. Let's do it.
Kansas 1A, Iowa State 1B, and then 3 is Texas Tech. Now, Oklahoma State, and I never played in Oklahoma State when they said back in the day, before they raised the ceiling there, raised the roof there, they say that was probably top 3. But there's no question. Right now, I think those are the 3 toughest places, best environments in the Big 12. K-State's good, can be good. West Virginia can be, really good. But night in, night out right now, when Hilton's special now. Kansas is Kansas, and Texas Tech has become phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. So it really has. And I think that part of what makes it so crazy there, and part of the reason why Mark Adams has been so successful there, is that there is no like basketball, or there is no football school to kind of follow the way they want to be able to follow it. You need something good to kind of get these fans inspired. I think that's why we're seeing Auburn fans flock to the program that Bruce Pearl has built there, right? It's part of why when Clemson basketball gets really good and maybe Clemson football's in a down year, that's why you see the Clemson fans go nuts, right?
That's how it was when I played. Like whenever Bowden, it was his last year, and then Dabo took the job, and there was like this little spell where Clemson football wasn't great, and then we were good. I mean, we weren't great, but we were, top 20 in the country for 2 years that I was there. Like that's when all the energy can happen, to kind of allude to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And it does get crazy in that building. I'll tell you this much. I knew it was going to get insane because I was told by a source close to that Texas Tech program that they had to, 1, hire 30 police officers to be able to provide security for Beard in that building. And 2, during the offseason, knowing that this game was going to happen, they had to find a different way for Chris Beard to exit the court so that he doesn't have to. Normally, Steve, right? The visiting coach has to walk by the student section to leave. They had to find a way for him to get out on the other side of the floor and still get back to the locker room because they were worried about him walking through the student section.
Yeah, you've got to walk. When you leave your bench, you're walking in front of the student section to get back to your tunnel to get to your locker room. And so they probably had to go back around or send him the other way to get over there from that standpoint. But, the one thing I think that gets, and this may be off the subject of the game, but, everybody talks Chris Beard, Mark Adams, and now they're leading 2 really good programs and both phenomenal coaches. Sometimes it can just be, hey, they were great for each other, and let's leave it at that. You know what I mean? I think they both helped each other an astronomical amount. They both were really good for each other. They had some phenomenal moments together. We played them in the tournament to go to the Sweet 16 when they were at Little Rock. My first year at Iowa State, they had a great team, won 30-plus games, and then they went to an Elite 8 and Final Four together. And now, I mean, tomorrow night, everybody's going to watch it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Ric Flair's going to be there. I mean, we grew up on Ric Flair.
Woo! Yep. And for the people that are just joining now, Baylor just knocked off West Virginia. So we are the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dosser. I have with me Clemson sharpshooter Terrence Oglesby and former Iowa State head man Steve Prohm. We're talking a little bit about Chris Beard and Mark Adams and that Texas Tech showdown that we are going to get tomorrow night at 9:00. I'll tell you guys this. I think that part of why Texas Tech fans are so bent out of shape is because Chris Beard wanted Mark Adams to come with him to Texas. He tried hard to get him to be one of the assistant coaches on his staff. And Mark Adams kind of shot his shot, right? Like there was no guarantee that he was going to get that Texas Tech job. And what he said was, I'm going to try. This is basically the one chance that he has to be a Big 12 head coach. He's 64, 65 years old. And he said, I'm just going to roll the dice. If it means I don't end up on your staff next year and I don't have a job, then it means I don't end up on your staff and I don't have a job. But he went for it. And part of the reason he got it is because the players, some of the Terrence Shannon, Kevin McCullough, some of those guys were like, we want to play for Mark Adams. I know Jeff Goodman was not the biggest fan of the hire. How is he going to get players? How is he going to be able to? I mean, you guys know how Jeff is with some of the stuff, but Mark Adams can coach his ass off, and he built a roster of dudes that just fit what Texas Tech. They fit Lubbock. They fit the blue collar ethos of that school, of that city. They kind of fit into what the program was when Beard first really got it going. A bunch of guys that are going to go out there and win the fight and then worry about winning the basketball game after that. They have 19 guys that are 6'6" and switchable and strong and look like they probably should be playing tight end on the football team. They switch everything. They play that no middle defense. Steve, let me ask you this. We got about a minute before we have to get to break here, but how difficult is it to go up against that no middle defense? That's not something that a lot of people do, right?
No, I think the Big 12 is a lot of people have started doing that. Baylor does it now. Iowa State started that this year, and then Texas obviously does it, with Beard, but it's very difficult to go against, especially in a small amount of prep time. I think the biggest thing in that standpoint, if you're going to do a lot of ball screens, you got to play in the middle third of the floor. There's a couple actions that you can run. What Mark does such a good job is you have your couple ATOs, your couple things that you prep that, hey, we can hurt them for their early help on the baseline. They do a great job of adjusting. So then your guys need to make the next read, but it's very, very difficult. You got to be fundamentally sound going in there and playing them because of the way they draw charges, because of their activity on the ball, because of their switching, the ball can't die, and you're going to get shots on the backside, and you got to be shot ready and you got to knock them down. And, hopefully, if Texas is going to go in there, when they penetrate and they move that ball around that backside, Andrew Jones, Courtney Ramey, they got to make threes over there in that backside corner.
All right. I need you guys to both give me a pick right now, putting you on the spot. Texas is playing at Texas Tech. It's 9:00 tip tomorrow in Lubbock. T.O., who's winning the game? You got to tell me right now.
I don't know the spread, but I'm going Texas Tech even with it.
The spread is not officially out yet. Last that I checked, I will look up right now. Prohm, who you got?
I've been going back and forth, but as a coach, you start thinking about, hey, there's at some point you got to go on the road and win a big time game, where nobody thinks you can win it and make a statement. So I'm going to take Texas tomorrow night, go in there and play really, really well. Fight off the emotions. They got to fight. They got to fight the fight early, but I'm going to take Texas to go in there and win.
Wow. You're going with Texas. So you said you've been going back and forth. I've been going back and forth on whether or not I think Texas Tech is going to win by 15 or 25. I just think that environment there, you're walking. Hornet's Nest is probably too kind for what you're walking in there. It's going to be the 7th level of hell for the Texas players when you walk into that building. And I just think it's going to be too much. I think Texas Tech, that is a team that thrives on energy. And there's going to be more energy in that building than I think any other building outside of maybe Coach K's last game.
There's no question. I tell you what, the referees are going to have to be on it because that game is going to be physical. They're going to have to be sharp tomorrow night. Those 3 guys, and I don't know who the crew is, but they're going to have to be sharp. But the one thing, because of all the emotion, and I saw a clip from Marcos Santos Silva. He did a phenomenal job in the press conference the other day after they beat Mississippi State when they were asking about this game. Hey, it's the next game. I love Coach Beard. I appreciate what he did for me. But this is a conference race too. And for the coaches, it's a conference game. It's a huge game, okay? It's not Beard Adams, what those guys are thinking. It's we got to win this conference game. We're trying to play for a conference championship.
I think there's more to it than just them thinking that, okay, we got to play for I'm sure that's in their thoughts, but I guarantee there's got to be more. If it's just Mark Adams, you know what? He might actually be the kind of guy that's wired to only say, yeah, it's just a regular game. I not even realize anything else is going on.
I think it can impact Tech's kids just as much because the thing's going to be so wild and there's going to be a lot of pressure on those players as well now. I mean, T.O. knows that. I mean, it's more pressure sometimes playing at home in big games than it is on the road. On the road, you should be loose, man. Let it fly, man. And take it media timeout to media timeout, weather the storms. Texas has to do a great job. When they've struggled, like going to Iowa State, when they struggle, they turn the ball over a ton. They got to take care of the ball. The thing against Texas Tech, Texas, Baylor, those no middle defenses, you got to get a good shot every time down the floor. All right. You can't let poor offense turn into good offense for them. And then you got to take care of the ball. And that's the biggest thing. It's going to be a great game. You know, Lubbock's a fun place to play. And the only one that got to go was Goodman. And he's there for like 3 days.
Yeah, but we just leave him down there. He could stay in Lubbock.
I'm surprised they're being so nice to him. He's in people's tents.
Yeah, I know.
Did they know he said Mark Adams? I mean, Mark Adams has won his whole life, and he doesn't think he can get it done. I'm like, holy smokes. I saw that one day. I was like, man, I'm going to wait till I get in here and bust his balls about that.
Yeah, Goodman he wouldn't know good coaching from his left shoe. So I'll leave it at that. All right. Anyway, you mentioned that we're in the middle of a Big 12 conference race. When we come back, coming up next, we're going to be breaking down that Big 12 conference race. And I'm going to tell you why Baylor doesn't really have all that much to worry about. Big picture.
Clear for 90.
Yeah, T.O., we were waiting to get to the break, but I was texting with Denton and Greg, our producer, the people listening. I was like, Prohm's rolling right now. I'm not stopping this man from talking about this. Yeah, he was in his zone, baby. He was like T.O. and he's 5 for 5 in a game. That was a heat check right there. All right, we do have some questions. The first one is from David. I love this question. How gone is Fanta right now if he's out with Raftery? On a scale of 1 to 10.
I just hope his chair doesn't break. His chair doesn't need to break with Raf. He's around some big time company now. Like Raftery, like he's got the call with Jerome Lane breaking the backboard.
1 minute.
You know, he's got onions. He can't break his chair because he's a full bottle of wine, you know, Merlot in. So
I would assume several deep because apparently that's a big part of the meeting.
Yeah. All right. So this is from Nick. Should John Calipari get consideration for National Coach of the Year? We got about 30 seconds here, so be quick on this one.
No, I think there's other guys that deserve it more. He obviously has an extremely talented roster, but I want to. Shaka Smart deserves it. I think Kelvin Sampson needs some consideration, and then you can just kind of and my main man Ed Cooley, he 20. Deserves it too.
Yep.
Yeah, there's several.
Tommy Lloyd. Yeah,
there's several that.
Bruce Pearl probably deserves. All right, real quick. You got about 10 seconds. Give me one word answer, T.O. Who wins the Cousy Award?
I don't know, dude. You can't do that to me. You can't do that to me.
2, 1.
Gillespie.
We are live. It is the Field of 68 after dark. We're on Sirius XM channel 84, the ESPNU station. We are streaming on YouTube. If you're watching right now, please jump in that chat. Ask us questions. We will be answering them every break. And if you're Coach Prohm, you might be answering them before we come out of break too, as well. That's why you heard that Gillespie jump in there. Anyway, we're going to talk about the Big 12 conference, kind of big picture here. And I want to start with Baylor. We just watched them struggle a little bit with this West Virginia team who is good, but they really haven't landed the wins to kind of prove how good they are. Kansas is coming off of a loss as well. But before we get into like kind of big picture stuff, I do want to talk about Baylor. T.O., how concerned are you with this group? Should Baylor fans be worried?
I was concerned until I watched them play tonight. And then they just kind of battled and gritted through it. And James Akinjo, who's battling through an ankle injury. And then they started a guy who played at Fairmont State last year. They started a guy that played at Fairmont State. Now, Bonner's a good player, but he still was a Division II player last year, and he started against a West Virginia team whose guard play can score. Taz Sherman, Sean McNeil, those guys can score. They still found a way to win defensively. They still tried to keep up, but they gave up 77 points. That's not going to be typical when Cryer gets back and some of the – who's the other guy out? Sorry, brain fart of the century.
Adam Flagler.
Adam Flagler out. Yeah. So like they didn't guard and they didn't handle the ball probably like they would, but it's a Baylor team. Once they get healthy, I think guys, this is a deep run NCAA tournament team once again, because they have all those pieces, but they do have to be healthy. That's a huge part of it, obviously.
Yeah, without question, man. I like Baylor. I mean, I know we look at those 2 home losses in conference, and if you're going to win a conference regular season championship, man, you hate to give away 2 at home. You try to, your goal really is win all your home games. Try to be, in the Big 12 would be 5-4 better on the road. I know they had the tough loss to Alabama, but Alabama's good. They're talented, and the grit and toughness that Scott Drew has developed in this program over the last several years is what's keeping them going right now. And we're asking about, we're questioning Baylor right now, or kind of floating out that question. And they're 7-2 in one of the best top 1 or 2 leagues in the country, maybe, top 3 league in the country. And they got a huge one though in Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday, but hopefully the great thing about playing on Monday in the Big 12 is, like we were talking about the dog days we're going to talk about a little bit later, man, Baylor may not come back for a legit practice till Thursday. I mean, they may have Tuesday and Wednesday off where it's treatment, recovery, some small individual workout groups, and really rest and recover with the trainer and with the strength coach, and really try to get healthy for Allen Fieldhouse.
So I want to ask you guys this, because I don't know if this is a hot take, but I feel like you can make an argument that there's not an elite team at the top of the Big 12 right now. And I hear what you're saying with the injuries with Baylor, T.O. But it's kind of, we haven't seen Baylor be that team for like a month, probably like a month or so. Right. So I am a little bit worried about them, whether or not they can kind of get back there. And then Kansas, I don't know if I could trust a team that doesn't have a great point guard and a Bill Self team that doesn't also have a 5-man that we can figure out an answer to. So is it crazy to say that the Big 12 has a whole bunch of teams that are just good? They don't have any great teams in that league. Am I off base?
I think you have some great players that can turn you into great teams on a certain night.
Yeah.
Like Ochai Agbaji, like he can turn you into a great team because he can go for 40. Like Texas Tech can have a great game defensively and really tear down anybody they play against because they're that. Now, are they going to be great every single night? I'm not sure about that. I think that's a plausible point. Now, Baylor, that ball's not popping like it was at the beginning of the season, and that ball's not popping like it did last year. There's a lot of high ball screens, a lot of what is it, horns actions that they're bringing people up and all that. Like there's a lot more dribbling here, especially today, because without the guard play, they kept it in Akinjo's hands a lot more. The ball's just not popping as much. You want Matthew Meyer to be able to attack off catches. He hasn't been getting that opportunity quite as much, but to go along with what you said, I'm not sure there is. Texas is not there. TCU is obviously they've turned into a good team, not a great team. Kansas, good team, not great team. But same time, guys, Kansas only has 1 loss in conference. So it's not like we're splitting hairs. Yeah, we're splitting hairs here. Let's be clear. They're still a very good team, but they're not an overly dominant team like we're expecting a Kansas team to be. But on a given night, Christian Brown and Ochai Agbaji can turn you into that great team.
Yeah, and you could pick holes in every single team in the top 10 or 12 in college basketball this season. Just flat out. That's just the year that it is.
Yeah, if you took the top 20 teams in the country and you threw them on a neutral floor with Baylor, Texas Tech, and Kansas, who are you taking? And I'm not going to, go Auburn, go Houston, all that. But just, if you think of it that way, Kansas didn't play great, Saturday against Kentucky. So now everybody's kind of reevaluating them, from that standpoint. But, they played really well. They beat a good Texas Tech team at home. The thing you said, Rob, I think is the biggest point guard play, and Bill Self's team needs a 5-man to be dominant around the rim. And McCormick's got to make huge strides the back end of conference play. That's a huge game in Ames tomorrow night. It's a big game for Iowa State, but it's also Kansas is usually at their best when they've played their worst, and they are going to be dialed in. Iowa State's going to get their best shot against Kansas, but Iowa State will be ready, I'm sure, as well. The environment will be crazy. It's a huge game for both teams. Kansas, the thing they got to look at when they're thinking about, because they're thinking about, hey, I want to win a Big 12 championship. If they win tomorrow night in Ames and they come home and beat Baylor, man, they can get about a 2-game separation. And that's huge going down the stretch.
Yep. That's actually a perfect segue because I did want to talk a little bit about that Kentucky-Kansas matchup, CO. I think that it said a lot more about Kentucky than it did about Kansas, just big picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And it showed the depth of their starting five. Like their fifth option can go and have a 27 and 8 rebound game. And the amount of attention that Oscar Tshiebwe attracts, like there was a couple of times they're boxing him out with 2 people. Keon Brooks ended up with 5 offensive boards because there's so much focus and attention going towards Tshiebwe, and he's still getting 15 boards, which is absurd in and of itself. Like that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. They bounce off this man like he's the Hulk. It's insane. But credit also, guys, like we didn't talk about this the other day. Kellen Grady defended his butt off. He chased Ochai Agbaji off those screens. He was outside shouldering him, making him drive. And then you have help inside with Tshiebwe waiting on him. Like he did a terrific job. That was a senior. That was a very good college player knowing how to play basketball off the ball defensively. Like he put on a clinic really of how to chase through screens and get in front.
You know what I loved about it? He's a dude that's known for his offenses, known for his shooting, that is going to Kentucky to try to showcase that. And he just sacrificed pretty much everything that he was doing offense. I think he only took like 4 or 5 shots. He was like, you know what? My job is to make sure that dude has a bad day. And Ochai finished 4 for 14 with 13 points. Prohm, that's you need guys that are willing to sacrifice the stuff that everyone loves doing to be able to do the stuff that you need to be able to win.
Yeah, no question, especially if you want to continue to grow and play deep into March, because everybody will get rewarded. Everybody will get rewarded at the end of the day. But, you know, when you really break down that kind of stat sheet from that game, when you go into Allen Fieldhouse and you out-rebound them by 12, and part of that, again, goes back to they're playing small ball. Sometimes they're playing 5 guards with Wilson at the 5 or, you know, Lightfoot's a smaller 5 man. But they only turned it over 9 times. Kentucky turns it over 9 times, and Wheeler and Tata, they get 13 assists combined. I mean, those are huge numbers, you know, on the road. 19 assists on 31 baskets from Kentucky.
You've coached a team in Fog Allen Fieldhouse, what, 6 times in your career?
5 times.
How impressive? You got to win. I think Bill Self has lost 16 times now. He's 286 and 16 in that building. I don't know if I've ever seen somebody go in there when that place was full, packed to the brim with 18,000 fans, go in there and do that. Right? Like you don't do that to Kansas in that building.
Well, the last time was I don't know, when was the Texas game, you know, a couple years ago.
It was during COVID. Yeah, there were 2,000 fans. There were only 2,000
fans. So that's a little bit different, but you don't do that in Allen Fieldhouse. I know Arizona State went up there with Hurley a while back and played extremely well, but Allen Fieldhouse, that environment, when that music starts playing and Paul Pierce is on the jumbotron and you're looking around there, man. I mean,
Snoop Dogg makes an appearance. There's a whole lot going on there at
when they got Fog the money Allen. Guns out there, the stripper pole showing up.
That was just the most audacious thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I love
that. I loved every bit of it. It was just we're in trouble, NCAA. We're in trouble. We're gonna bring Snoop Dogg and a money gun out. Do something. Sorry, Steve.
I need to have a straight face right now. But no, the one quote that Self said that was funny at the end of the game, I think I read this right, was with Keon Brooks. You know, he coached the under 19s or whichever team that was, and he was like, man, you must have been really mad I cut you, you know. So but the one thing about Self, we know they'll be ready to go now that to Tuesday, tomorrow. Now I don't know if they'll win or not. But they'll be ready. But
you want to know why? You don't want to be in those practices on Sunday or Monday after that butt whooping that they just took.
No, I just, you know, and I would have never dreamed that was coming. You know, if you would ask me who's winning that game, I thought Kansas. They're coming off the Texas Tech game. I thought, man, they're going to win this game. Obviously Kentucky, man, showed a lot of moxie going in there, but there's nobody better after a loss than Self. And
none.
You know, but McCormick, man, they got to get something from David McCormick. You know Braun, you know Agbaji, you know Wilson. It's those two spots you talked about, especially McCormick. You know, because Harris is solid. You know, he's going to be solid across the board. You know, Remy's Remy, but it's McCormick, man. If he can come on like he did the back end of last year, then they can be who everybody wants them to be.
Yep, it's the bookends of a starting five. The point guard and the center spot are the ones that you need. But listen, we got to head to break here. Coming up next, we're going to take you through what should be one of the wildest nights in college basketball on Tuesday night.
Clear for 90.
All right, we got a couple more.
I couldn't help
questions.
myself.
Oh, it was so good. It was perfect. exactly what we needed.
Hey, here's this commercial for Fanta, the X chair. We need to get him.
All right. I got a question from Adam in the chat. If you're in the YouTube chat right now, one, hit that like button, and two, drop a question in the chat. I will ask these guys. First and foremost, if you have the same roster on a neutral floor and one of the team is coached by Chris Beard and the other one is coached by Mark Adams, who are you betting on to win? I'm going to you first on that one. So that's a tough question.
Probably Beard, because I don't know, man. What if you have the exact same one, like the exact same roster for up and down? They've both won it at such a high level. That's an impossible question. I don't understand where I would who would get the benefit of the doubt there. That must be a Texas Tech fan. If it's a Texas Tech fan, Mark Adams. If it's a Texas fan, Chris Beard. I don't know how you answer that.
Yeah, they're both elite coaches. I mean,
elite.
You know, if you ask the question of who do you want to coach one game for you, probably say Bill Self,
Yep. Let me ask you guys this. I think what it comes down to is which coach gets the real players and which one gets the clones, because we know what the real players are. You don't know what the clones are going to end up being, right?
10.
So if you have the same roster, no one's picking up what I'm putting down. All right. I'm just going to move on. Coming back from break now.
3.
I'm lost.
2.
We're back. This is the Field of 68 After Dark. We are live right now on Sirius XM channel 84. That is the ESPNU station. We're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on Twitter. If you are watching on either of those apps, please jump in the chat. Leave a question. We will be answering those on the Field of 68 After Dark afters coming up as soon as we're done being on Sirius XM. Make sure you hit that like button. All that stuff really does help us in the channel. It helps us grow it a little bit. I want to ask you guys this, because you both played and coached basketball at a high level. Tomorrow's February 1st. Tomorrow's kind of when we get into the dog days of the college basketball season. And at least for me, when I get into this point of the calendar, it's kind of like, all right, I'm fired up for these big games, but can we get to the tournament? Can we get to conference tournament weekend? Can we get to championship week? Can I get to that Tuesday where I can turn on the TV at noon and watch a 9-12 game in the Big East tournament start tipping off? Can we get back into this situation where we have 14 hours of basketball on every single day? That's what I'm looking forward to. When you're in the moment, when you're playing, what is it like, Steve, when you kind of get into February and get into the meat of the conference season?
I was joking with you guys off air. It depends on the kind of season you have. And you having a great year, it's the best thing in the world. If your team, if you're struggling, you're trying to figure out ways, to get your team going and back. But also, I think do you have an experienced team or a young team? From that standpoint, I think you got to coach your team towards your older guys from a standpoint of, keep them fresh, keep them mentally ready to go. But I think one of the toughest things, like you touched on, as you get to this point, is not letting guys get a little loose, because you're trying to get to the tournament, you're trying to get to the conference tournament to keep their focus. And T.O. and I were talking off air. You see a lot of younger players really make strides over the Christmas break. Yep. They're off school 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. There's no more 8 a.m. class, to study hall, to 10 a.m. class. It's wake up, go to the gym, get treatment, practice, get some extra shots. And so they make strides. But the teams that can continue to improve, continue to work, continue to stay focused, those are the teams, because you can't settle. You got to continue to grow and get better. But I think as you're winning, the more you can rest your guys, the more you can stay focused on just the prep piece. Because once you get to February, T.O. knows this, You know what North Carolina is going to run. You know what Rutgers is going to run. You know, you need to just be good at what you do.
Yeah, and that's obviously coming from a coach perspective. From a player perspective, that's when your work shines through, or end of January, early February. Like if you're still working hard during those times, your game's going to show. This is when a lot of guys go into slumps, because it's easy to work in the preseason because there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of stuff you're looking forward to. You're going to be the starter. You're going to be this. You're going to be that. Is your work continuing as the year goes on? And that was a big point of pride for me whenever I was still playing. I was going to maybe have a bad game, but I'd roll off 2 or 3 in a row right after that because I continued to maintain my work throughout the entire season. And that's when you see guys separate themselves, especially from a statistical perspective. Guys aren't going to fall off the wagon because that work continues to go all the way through. And there's going to be guys fall off as well. So you kind of wait, because this is the point where you haven't quite started talking about conference tournaments. You haven't quite started talking about NCAA. Well, people have talked bubble because they talk about it the whole year. But I think for the most part, this is the time where it's the monotony of everyday life of basketball. The monotony. Are you willing to embrace the monotony of every single day coming in and getting your work in when you have your first exam coming in at the end of January? Like that's a huge portion of it. Like you got regular school life too. Everybody's back. People are starting to get sick because they're bringing sickness back from Christmas, right? Like, are you still able to maintain your work? And I think that was a big thing. That was a point of pride for me. And that's the reason I was able to have some good games during my time in college, because the work never stopped.
The other big thing is when the students get back on campus, all of a sudden, when you're the only ones there, it's very easy to not get distracted on a Saturday night, to not have to think like, oh, Friday night, well, there's this frat party down the street and I know that girl that I got a crush on is going to be down there. There's not the people that live down the hall from you being like, hey, you want to come over? We're having a beer pong tournament kind of a thing. So you lose that when everybody else is home for break and you're the only ones on campus. Now everybody's back. It's winter. It's time. It's college, man.
You think they're having a beer pong tournament in Raiderville tonight?
Oh, yeah. I think Jeff Goodman's losing that beer pong tournament in Raiderville right now.
The one thing I'll say to all the great players that I've been around or watched work or coached, just like T.O. to second that you may practice at 3 or 2, but they've already been in the gym 9 to 9:45. They've already gotten their work. They've gotten their treatment. They've gotten their stretching. They've done their band workout. They've gotten their shots up. They understand the business side of it. They understand the professionalism side of it. It's the mentality of the great players.
I would always come back late at night because it was around the same time that we would play games, because that was a big portion of it to me. I wanted to be at the same time of day, shooting, working out, that we would be playing. So I would always come back late at night.
Yep. And Tio, I bet he probably had a manager on call. Hey, John, meet me there. Boom, 7:00. And he's there and they rebounding and getting shots up. But that's what makes the difference.
Manager and Tony Oglesby, rest in peace. My dad, he would drive up from Atlanta 2 hours to come rebound for me 3 times a week. That's a true story.
That's awesome.
Good stuff.
That's
there.
Awesome. That is great stuff. Well, listen, we have a great slate of basketball games tomorrow. We have Alabama at Auburn. We have Kansas at Iowa State. And of course, we have Texas at Texas Tech. We will be breaking all of that down tomorrow night on the Field of 68 after dark. But this is the end of our show tonight on Sirius XM channel 84. So for Terrence Oglesby, for Coach Steve Prohm, my name is Rob Doster. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And it's time for the afters, fellas. It is time for the Field of 68 After Dark Afters. By the way, the lines are now out at Bet Rivers. Texas Tech is favored by 5.5 in a game where the total is 120. I don't know how you can not take Texas Tech in this spot. I don't know what the line would need to be. Greg, I don't know if your audio is working right now, but I don't know. You could just text me if you want. I don't know what I would need the line to be to actually take Texas on the road in this spot. I don't think that there's a number that you could give me where I would want to be on the Texas side.
What's the spread?
5.5.
5.5.
I would say 8.5. Now 8.5, 9. I would start to consider.
I just don't think I would unless you want to say like I'm going to give you 25 points. Okay, yeah, then I'll take Texas and 25 points. But any like reasonable line that will show up at Bet Rivers at any point, I don't think that I can be on the Texas. It's going to be a bandsaw when you walk in there, man. It's going to be insane.
Yeah, but Prohm's taking money line Texas. So like, what are we talking about here? And he's the only one who's been there. We haven't been there. I haven't been in the Big 12 arenas. He's been there.
Man, Lubbock, we won there twice, 2017 and 19, and it was wild. I mean, it was wild.
Yeah. All right. So let me
it's
ask
a great place to play, though.
It is.
It is great. It's become like one of the top venues to go to.
You know what's great about it? It's not too big, right?
No.
It's small.
They're on top of you too now.
Yep.
They're on top of you behind the bench. The students are right there on top of you. Last year, it is going to be.
I'll tell you this about the Texas Tech fans too. Those guys travel. I think I made this point. I don't know if it was on Saturday night with UTO on After Dark, but
yeah, it was. It was
in 2018, the first year that Beard like made that tournament run when he got into the Elite Eight. They played in the regional in Boston when Villanova was there. I think they played Purdue in the first round. Purdue travels like crazy. That is another like really passionate, really, really intense fan base. And in Boston Garden, there were more Texas Tech fans than Purdue fans in the Sweet 16. They advance, take on Villanova the year that Villanova is winning their second national title in 3 years. That was the year they had Jalen Brunson, Omari Spellman, Dante DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, all of those dudes. They were loaded. They were the best team in college basketball. Everybody knew it. And in Boston Garden, which is like a 3-hour drive from Philadelphia, from the main line, it was probably like 65-35 Texas Tech fans. And they were loud and they were crazy and they showed up in their cowboy hats and their cowboy boots. And it was just, it was a nonstop party. And here's my other favorite thing that Chris Beard did for that event. They travel with like 3 speakers that are the size of like a filing cabinet. You know, the one, like the big metal aluminum ones with the drawers that you pull out. He would have 3 speakers that were that size that would all plug into one phone. And everywhere that they go, they are playing music that is just unbelievably loud to the point where it's like when you walk down the hallway next to it, you got to cover your ears. And they would be doing this in the hallway, warming up while Villanova is out there on the court getting their practices. And you could hear every word of every song that was played on the court while they are warming up in the hallway. They're not warming up in the locker room. They are warming up in the hallway, waiting to get on the floor to get their practice in before the Elite Eight game. And all Villanova is hearing is like, I think at that point it was when Old Town Road was big. So they're playing like Old Town Road in the hallway, getting they're out there.
I like that.
And here's my other favorite part about it. And I'm sorry I'm going on this rant about it, but what Chris Beard did is he had a rule where it was like players get 3 songs on the playlist, and then the coaching staff gets 1 song. So you would have like Old Town Road, and then you have Waylon Jennings, and it was just it was just such a dichotomy of the different styles of music. I love. That's when I was like, okay, I love what this program is about.
Yeah, there's one thing I think you got to put into perspective or into play for this Texas Tech game tomorrow night. Those guys have won in Lubbock, and I know the crowd is going to be nuts. Okay, but the environment was good last. Andrew Jones has won there. Courtney Ramey has won there. Febres has won there. Cunningham has won there. Them guys have won there. They should have swept them last year. You know, Shaka had them rolling COVID year. You know, so those guys, like, they're not going into a place that they don't think they can win or hadn't won. You know, they've just got to handle the craziness early, you know, and then they can't turn it over.
I mean, honestly, if you go on a quick little like 8-0 spurt at the beginning and kind of get that crowd under control and you can keep them at bay, you have a chance to go in there and win it. I just think that they're like, if they get down early, or any 6-0 run is going to bring the ceiling down.
Well, so, I think Scott Drew does a great job with this, and he did this in Hilton all the time. He would use 4 timeouts in the first half, just so it wouldn't get wild. And he's just trying to get to the last 4 minutes of the second half. And you could see Beard maybe do that tomorrow night. I don't know his thought process on that, but I hope it's a good
that's
game.
interesting.
I hope it's a good game.
I think it's going to be a more entertaining environment than it is an entertaining basketball game. All right, let me ask you guys this. We do have some questions in the chat. The first one comes from Andrew. How many bids are going to come from the Big 12 this season?
What do they have?
They got 10 in the league.
6 or 7. I mean, I would assume 6 or 7.
8's the hot take right now when you look at Lenardi, because you're saying Oklahoma and TCU and West Virginia. The only ones you're saying not right now is K-State, Oak State. It'll be interesting to see as this season goes on, can they maintain 8? There's no question they're getting at least 6. It's going to be 7 or 8, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it right now on our we did the first episode of Fielding the 68, which goes live Monday 6:00 Eastern time and Friday 6:00 Eastern time. They have Baylor as a 1 seed, Kansas as a 2 seed, Texas Tech as a 3 seed. They have Iowa State as a 6 seed, Texas as a 7. TCU is an 8 seed for them.
Yep.
Then we have
Oklahoma and West Virginia are 7 and 8 right now.
Yeah,
Can
so
they get in?
They have
Oklahoma TCU's been a pleasant surprise, man.
Really good.
I really like Emmanuel Miller, the Texas A&M transfer, like 6'8", undersized 4, like tough as shit, man.
Damian Ball. He's averaging 19 points a game. This was going to be one of my cheer. 19 points a game. They're 3-1. He's averaged 19 points in those 3 wins. The Memphis transfer.
Hey, he's a point guard, right? He's a point guard, right?
I see what you did there, T.O. You know what's funny? You know what's funny
like
about that?
Yeah,
I was literally trying to make the same joke when you just butted in and
dude, I ruined that shit for you. I've ruined it for you the past couple of shows. I'm sorry, dude. I just jumped right in front of it.
Yeah, you took my Jeremy Roach line the other night.
I know.
But long story short, our guys, our bracketologists have our consensus right now is 8 teams from the Big 12 getting into the NCAA tournament. All right, we got another question. This one is from Aaron. It's for you, Steve. Who is the best junior college player that you ever watched or evaluated?
Oh, I'm glad you asked this one. I'm curious.
Oh man, junior college player.
You dabbled in JUCO at Murray State, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. The best junior college player I coached at Murray State, a kid named Jarvis Williams. He was great for us. He was a senior my last year. He was
the big guy on that campaign team, right?
He was the big kid on the Cameron Payne, team. We, they had a great, run. Man, I don't know. We junior college. Give me a second. I may come back to that. I don't know if T.O. saw somebody he can.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I'll
right,
tell you what, the JUCO kid that's playing pretty well for Louisville, L. Ellis, he's pretty good. Like he's a good player.
Recruited
Their team
hard.
is not
he's
great.
A good player. We recruited him hard at Iowa State, and he's a good player. And the good thing about him now, he's just a sophomore. He's going to have two more years from that standpoint. But I think you got to have a balance.
We just don't know who he's playing for.
Yeah. I think if you can get a good balance, a good high school, good transfer, good junior college, that's the best recipe.
All right, I got another one for you. This is coming from Trevor and Bryce down in Dallas, Texas right now. T.O., who is your favorite announcer to listen call a game?
You know who I really enjoy John Fanta, 1A, first of all, for anything else. The legend John Fanta. A guy that I really enjoy listening to as a color commentator. I really enjoyed John Crispin because he really
South
goes
Jersey
second
guy.
level.
South Jersey guy. He lives like 10 minutes. He lives like 10 minutes away from me. We both go to the same local Tex-Mex spot.
Yeah, I think he does a really, really good job diving into the second level and still keeping it relatable to where the casual fan can understand and follow him. And then, who's the gentleman out of the Midwest who does the Cubs? Gosh, he's one of the best play-by-play guys out there. What's his name? He does some games with Hummel.
John?
No, not Scamby. Scamby's good too. Scamby, and obviously Hummel's great. But I'm talking about
you mean Sciambi?
Yeah, Benetti.
You mean Bug Sciambi? Who's Sciambi? It's Sciambi.
Who said Scamby?
John, I
You
should have
said
just said
Scamby.
John. I should have just said John.
No, I mean, hey, there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good ones. There's some ones that I don't enjoy so much, but I'm not going to do that. But
we don't have to go down that road.
No, but Benetti is really good. I think Crispin, to me, he's somebody who makes it relatable. He's somebody who works the truck really well to get exactly what he wants. I was actually sitting in the production room whenever Carolina came down to play Clemson. I was the assistant director of that game, and I was communicating back and forth from ESPN to campus because everything was on campus last year. And I got to see how he interacted back and forth with the truck. And that actually helped me a lot with how I can manage that stuff. So I really enjoy listening to him, and I think he does a good job of keeping it relatable. So Crispin for me.
He's opinionated, and he's not afraid to kind of go out on a limb. He's not afraid to criticize someone. And I do enjoy that. I don't think that he goes too far either. I think Fran Fraschilla is the best color
he's
commentator.
Great.
Because Fran on the Big 12 is better than anybody, is the best that there is. Fran calling Big 12 games because he'll know the stories, he'll have players.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised he's not in Lubbock. Tomorrow night.
Who's calling that game?
I don't know.
You should ask him about that. He I don't know.
He's got the Kansas. I'll
tell you. I'll tell you guys why when it's not rolling. I don't want to. I'll tell you.
But anyway, the thing about Fran just being in the league and knowing he is invested in that league.
Yes.
And that's really cool. I like the strategy of that to where, hey, when I think Fran Fraschilla, I think the Big 12. When I think Jimmy Dykes, I think the SEC.
Jimmy's great.
Yeah, I like Jimmy a lot.
Yeah,
I like Jimmy a lot.
I'm just glad he stopped doing that stupid Jimmy's Jet thing.
It's supposed to come. I hate to break you news, but I was watching the other night, and they said it's coming next week. So don't watch Super Tuesday then. It may come tomorrow night during the Auburn-Alabama game.
What is that, Jimmy's Jet? What did he do?
He's got the first people in first class. Kentucky's in first class. Auburn's in first class. Gonzaga's in first class. Wow. And then, man, we got, Oklahoma and West Virginia in coach right now. We got to.
My thing with that is like Jim, he's good enough that he doesn't need the gimmicks. Yeah. Just tell me what you see happening, man. Like you don't need the gimmicks. You're good enough that you can talk through a game and I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. In honor of Fanta, man, Bill Raftery.
Yeah, of course.
Legend.
Of course.
But like that's obvious. Like Raft and Dick Vitale, like those are just they're legends of the game. They're great promoters for the game. Yeah. They are great when it comes to kind of being ambassadors for college basketball. Like Dickie V, like and when it comes to calling a game and breaking it down, like that's not him. Not what he does. That's not him.
He's the energy. He's the energy.
Like he's the energy. And the same thing with Raft. Like those guys are just they love the sport so much that it is impossible to watch them and not be like, all right, yeah, I'm fired up too. And I understand that people kind of get frustrated with Dickie V and like the cliches and all that. But look, the man loves college basketball more than anybody else on the planet. Yeah. And he's also happened to raise like $1 billion for cancer research. And he's like 85 years old and he's still
a literal billion. Yeah.
The thing I love about Dick Vitale, and I've been a fan of his forever. He came and did our bracket buster my first year at Murray State. We played St. Mary's, and he treated that game like it was Carolina Duke. Mm-hmm. He surfed in the stands. He went and ate afterwards. He danced with the cheerleaders. I mean, he put on a show, and that's what to me spoke volumes about Dick Vitale and who he is. The other guy that I was going to say we didn't mention that slipped my mind now. I'll come back to it, but there was somebody that we had skipped over.
I love Hummel.
Of course. I didn't even think about him.
He's so relatable. He has absolutely no ego, like at all. The dude needs more of an ego, if anything else. Like he needs to hang out with Goodman more and let some of Goodman's ego rub off on him.
Yeah, Brett Musburger to me, like I grew up on and obviously he doesn't do it now, but man, when I first got into Big 12 and you walk out there as a younger coach and you got Brett Musburger on your Big Monday game, you're like, damn, this is pretty awesome. And,
hey, this is a local one, but Bob Rathman, who does the Hawks stuff.
Well, if you grew up on Raycom, I mean, didn't you? I mean, he in Raycom Sports over there, ACC country. You know him.
He. It's funny enough. Like I met Bob at a golf tournament this summer, and we've kind of struck up a nice relationship. But man, what a nice person! And he, man, you want to talk about somebody who has a grip on everything else too. Like he is fantastic, and he does a phenomenal job with the Hawks still, and does a ton of games around. He does college stuff now as well, and he's a pro's pro, and he's been doing it for a long time. There's so many people in the industry, but Bob's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like
Eric A right now, real quick. Eric A right now in the chat. This one cracked me up. I just wanted to see if anyone was saying anything in the chat about this, and he just said, "Imagine if Raft instead of saying onions said vajalias."
I'm glad you enjoyed that joke.
We gotta get the puppies organized in here. We got a Bob Euchre for Brewers Radio. Anyway, let's get to 3 cheers, guys. And get out of here.
You guys go ahead. You guys go first on this one.
Yeah, Prohm, you go, man. You go. What do you got for me?
Can I do 2 or just 1? I know the rules.
Do two. Okay. I love it.
First, Damian Ball at TCU. They've won 3 of the last 4. Excuse me. They had a huge win at Oklahoma. They beat LSU. They won at Iowa State. Obviously Texas handled them pretty good. But in their 3 out of 4 games that they've won, their 3-1 stretch, Damian Ball, 19 points a game, right around 19 points a game he's averaging. He's been huge. But also, I text Murray State. Only 2 teams in the country right now have 20 wins. Okay, they got their 20th win. And you can talk about league A, B, C, and D. If it's not February 1st and you got 20 wins, you're doing something right. There's no question about that. And them and Auburn are both 20. And I think, what is Auburn, 20-1? Murray State's 20-2, and so they're just a team to watch down the stretch. So 3 cheers
to the Racers and to Damian Ball. What do you got? What do you got, Tito?
Hey, Mac Mahan, East Tennessee guy, Oak Ridge High School, right down the road from Knoxville. Oh yeah, McMahon. Sorry, he recruited me when he was at App State, when he was working for Houston Fancher, another East Tennessee guy. Neither here nor there. This cheer is going to John Fanta because he big timed us tonight. But he big timed us for a good reason. He's eating dinner and drinking some red, I'm sure, with Raftery. And he's got a big game tomorrow. I'm happy that he's starting to get the recognition he deserves after a spectacular call with Providence and Marquette. Man, he has done awesome. And he's only freaking 26 years old. John Fanta, there's to you, sir.
Will he make the donut run tonight, man? Last time we were on, man. My man snuck the Krispy Kremes, man, on camera. So, no wine, just donuts.
Anyway, listen, mine goes out to Hunter Maldonado of Wyoming. He had 35 points and 7 dimes tonight. Shot 12 for 19 from the floor. Wyoming picked up a massive win over Colorado State in the Mountain West standings. I believe that puts them, if I'm not mistaken, into first place.
Second,
Boise State. Yeah, Boise State's in there. And here's the crazy thing: we might get a 4 bid Mountain West, and I hope we do. Boise State looks great. Wyoming now is 17-3, 6-1 in the league. Colorado State should be good enough to be a tournament team. And San Diego State, as long as did they mess up tonight against New Mexico?
No, they drilled New Mexico.
Drilled them. All right, good. So to Hunter Maldonado. And Wyoming, to Terrence Oglesby, to Steve Prohm, to our producer, Greg Waddell, who's in the background reminding everybody about Jason Benetti and telling us when it's time for us to stop the After Dark Afters. So cheers to all of us. This has been the Field of